Hello everyone, welcome to the 12th Canadian Science Policy Conference 2020 this year. And we are going fully virtual this year. As a result of that, all our interviews are virtual as well. So I have here with me Dr. Justina C, who is the President and Senior Scientist at the Wildlife Conservation Society of Canada. Hi, Dr. C, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I hope you're well too.
Yes, I'm doing well too. Thank you. Okay, so let's get on with our interview then. So the first question I have for you is that 2020 has been an unprecedented year for society, individual, scientific community, for all of us essentially. So how has your organization modified itself according to it, or how has your role modified itself? So if you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, just WCS Canada, Wildlife Conservation Society Canada, is an organization of conservation scientists that are right at the interface between science and policy, and we work in a variety of ways, mostly in the on biodiversity, but also climate issues. And so the pandemic, when it struck, just like everybody, it had some profound effects on our day-to-day work. I mean, many of us are field biologists, so that really compromised some of our plans, that we had to do quite a bit of adjustments. Some of us work in remote northern communities where we were not going to be going in there and haven't still for quite some time. Others among us just adjusted our field work. And it has been just in a period of a lot of sort of nimbleness, adjustment, taking advantage of opportunities, but also, challenges with juggling childcare or isolation. It seems to be many of us have had very different ways of going about this. I mean, in terms of our particular organizational goals, this pandemic has made our mission even more critical, because the spark of the pandemic was really about, I mean, even though it happened very far away from us here in Canada, the spark of it is really about our relationship with biodiversity and the interface between wildlands and humans, which is, we're encroaching upon that all the time, more and more. And this is why these kind of events are sparked increasingly. And they say a lot about our relationship with nature, biodiversity, and just the sort of the need to be really thinking much more holistically about how we think about health. We've talked a lot over the years, and public health has gotten much better with social determinants of health, but really the environmental pillar and how and the sort of condition of the environment, other organisms with whom we share our planet, that is not front and center in our conversations about public health. And so quite a lot of those dimensions of our mission have really become even more important. People, the average person on the street is recognizing the value of nature, the need to have better relationship with nature. So that's oriented our mission in very important ways. So we feel even more committed, if that was even possible today, than we've ever had before.
Thank you. So, and on that note, how do you think that the trust in the scientific community and effective science communication has evolved in the light of recent events, and what do you think is important in this regard?
Well, it's been really interesting. I mean, the science face of this has been, public health. In the public health arena, epidemiologists, disease ecologists, and so forth. And the observations that I have from it is that, Canadians are very interested in hearing from the experts directly. And there has been a clear distinction between the politicians who are using their advice and the scientists themselves. And that plays out differently depending on the political circumstances in which jurisdiction. But we're noticing as Canadian citizens which scientists are out in front on messagings, which of these experts are successfully given platforms and how they're communicating, and whether or not that is clear or not. And on that note, the other thing that the public is seeing is the sausage making of science in a way. I mean, the breathtaking speed with which our knowledge has evolved just in the course of this pandemic is playing out in front of all of us. And what might seem like to one person as waffling by a scientist is really, just trying to communicate in the face of uncertainty and evolving understanding, which is what science is. And so we're very comfortable with that as scientists, but many members of the public aren't. But it's great to sort of both see that in action and where the average person is getting a much better understanding about how science informs, decisions and action and so forth. But also just that it's not so straightforward. It's not just about plucking evidence from some place and then applying it to policy and voila. It's all about navigating the reality of uncertainty, evolving understanding, and then also trying to effectively communicate, which is not the easiest thing for us scientists. So that's what's playing out now, and even that's not directly in my field. I think overall, it's been a really interesting experiment, and which is ongoing.
Thank you. So on that note, then again, just following up on that, maybe how important do you think are organizations like CSPC, so the Canadian Science Policy Center, in the journey of these effective science communication or towards the goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think we work squarely in the science and policy interface. So it is a topic of enormous, personal interest to me and most of the colleagues with whom I work. It's interesting that when you're looking at the cast of characters out there who generate science, there's varying a capacity, ability, experience among them for applying that science to the real world. And there are many reasons for that. Some of it just has to do with like the average professor who may work enormously on the generation of science, has huge responsibilities with respect to, teaching students, advising graduate students and so forth, that mean that there just aren't enough hours in the day to immerse themselves in the policy milieu in which their science might be evident. And then you move over to another end of the spectrum where people are very, very interested in the science but don't have the understanding of it. So this conference and fora like this provide, opportunities for people to discuss the realities of this. It's not easy. Those that are in charge of making policy will tell you that, making these evidence bases is not easy. And it's very, very important for those who generate science, on that end of the spectrum, to really understand the challenges associated with it and what the real world is all about, how policies are made and what goes into them and how science figures into the whole enterprise is really critical. So that interface that's where we are, and I'm very grateful to these kind of conferences.
Yeah, I think you answered my question, but just on like another question too. So we are going virtual. So what are your expectations on basis of the virtual platform?
Well, I mean, the virtual conference makes it more accessible to more people. I mean, that is the reality. We're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing participation, and not just this conference, but we're seeing participation, and we is the royal we, right? It's evident that since we have not been able to travel, we are seeing much more participation, much more diversity. People are able to juggle a few more things. Sometimes that's damaging because people are still doing too many things. Just the simple notion of removing travel from the equation is also just a more responsible way to have a conference, but it forces us to be much more creative than we ever have before. I think it's generating more interest in new models of delivery. You know, I think some of our conference models were frankly getting kind of tired anyway. And you know, and so I've seen some very interesting ways, and the program for this particular conference looks like that as well, is that there's just really much more imagination and in there. I mean, we won't be able to replace those interactions, and particularly for emerging scholars, you know, people people who are just out of graduate school and are really, where networking is so absolutely critical for the next stage of life and so forth. And you know, that part is challenging, right? You know, and we're looking for more and more ways in which to expand that, and I'm confident that that'll happen. I mean, the ideation and the evolution of imagination that's occurred in the last 6 months alone has been completely unpredictable and really fun to watch. So I expect good things out of this conference as well.
Thank you so much. So any closing or last remarks you have to share with us?
No, I mean, come visit our website at wcscanada.org. Follow us on Twitter, WCS_Canada. And, you know, we're a behind the scenes organization, but we really work, as I've been saying, very much right at this interface between science and policy, and are excited to share experiences, learn more from others. And I mean, there's a heck of a lot of work to do. And so in the field that we occupy, the more the merrier, and it's just great to have the interest. So I think that's all I would say.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and for this wonderful interview.
Thank you so much.